There were some issues in the last webinar with the audio quality, so I've got a headset and mic this week, so I'm hoping it's going to be a lot clearer. I'll be answering questions as we go through, so if you, I'll leave the chat window up, so if you have any questions, just jump in and you can ask them. Once again, obviously the webinar is going to be recorded, and a link to the recording and files used in this webinar will be placed online in the Oomph Learning HQ. At the end of the webinar, I'll post links to the Learning HQ and to features and products we've discussed today. Also check out, if you're on LinkedIn, check out our new user group, the Oomph user group that Serena set up. We'd like to get you in there. It'd be a great place to do discussions, and I'll post a link to it at the end of the webinar. So widgets, if you've ever added audio to a page, used Flipbooks, published an in-page slideshow, or implemented a dozen other interactive features, then you've used an Oomph widget. In this webinar, I'm going to go beyond the built-in widgets and start building some of our own. If you want to provide your readers with feedback options such as contact forms, satisfaction surveys, or event registrations, building your own widget will allow you to integrate the form into your page rather than have a web view open to display it. After we've looked at these form-based widgets, we're going to take a look at Oomph's new Share Widgets. These are very cool and allow you to create on-page hotspots that invoke sharing behavior on various social networks. Similar to the built-in share functions that are already available inside the app, but they're much more flexible and allow a greater range of customization. You can also use content templating with shared widgets to include dynamic contextual information. So in this webinar, we're going to take a form created in Wufoo and make it a widget that will work within the Oomph framework. We'll look at how shared widgets work and how to customize them for your own publications. We're going to look at content templating to simplify them and make them reusable. This way you don't have to keep typing in the names of things or where the link is to download the app. And if time permits, I'll give you a sneak peek at some much requested updates, but I don't know if we're going to get there because it's a pretty full little agenda we've got going on here. So the most common way of referencing a form has been to use the web link option in Oomph. For example, I'm working on an app for my client Orion Expeditions, and they have a booking form on their website, and this is the URL to the website. So normally what you could do is you could just add a little link to it that when you tap on it, it actually takes you to that hotspot, to the web page, and opens the web page in this little window. And then they can, scroll up and down and, pretty much access everything that's inside that form. So that works perfectly, and the user can fill in the form and then select Done. But I'd like to integrate the form into the app so that it becomes much more a part of the whole experience. And to do that, I need to make a web-based form, turn it into a widget, and add it into my section. So here's a simple form. Okay, I'm just going to enter some content. And so I'll put in Tony, redhead, my email, tony@modegeneration.com. Okay, this is a webinar about widgets. They are cool. Okay, so once I'm done, I can submit that form. And it's come back with a thank you for the feedback. And what it's done now is that's sent that back to the form building site Wufoo into a report-based area, and also as an email for me. So if I come into my email here, there's my email that's just come in, my name, the email address, and the comments I've made. So that's a form that's been embedded into Oomph. So let's look at how we go about building the form. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to come to Wufoo, and the email address is wufoo.com. Now, one of the cool things is here you can actually sign up for a free account, and it allows you to create 3 forms. The only restriction is that you get a bit of branding with it, but it's a great way to test them out. So you can come in here, you can build complete forms, you can put them in your app, and you can try them out. So I'm just going to log in here. And you can see here are the 2 forms that I've already filled in or made in this inside Wufoo. Now you can see here that I've already had 1 entry today. So that was that last comment I just made. Okay, and I'm just going to add in here and say show me the comments as well. So there you can see all the different comments that are coming in there. That wasn't one that I did, that was one from before. Hang on. Anyway, so across the top we've got a series of little tabs here: forms, reports, themes, users, etc. I'm not going to spend too much time in Wufoo. I have to say it's a really friendly environment. It's really easy to explore, so I'm sure you'll be able to find everything you need in it. So, but I'll show you how to build a form. I'm a free account, so I've got 1 form left. Okay, so I'm going to say new form. So it's taking me into the form page. I'm going to build the simple feedback form. So I need to give it a name, and I just come into the form settings, and I'll call it, my simple feedback form. Then I can put in a description. I'd like to know what you think of my app. And a bit of text for the confirmation. So once they've submitted it, and we'll say thanks for taking the time to give me your feedback. Okay, now we can do other things. We can send a confirmation email back to the user. We can put a capture on it, so one of those little things that has the words that you can never remember, etc. But that's all I need in for here. There's the name of it. So what we want to do now is we want to add the fields that we're going to be using in here. So we'll come into add fields, and the first thing we want is I want a name, first and last. Okay, and I'm going to call that the field your name. Now there's a couple of things. Once again, there's other options. We can change the name of it, the format, if it's a mandatory field or not, you can have that selected or not, or instructions for the user, etc. Add CSS, quite a lot of things you can do in there. And now we also want to put our next form, which is we need to know their email address. And once again, I'm just going to change that to your email address, and we'll make that required. And the last one is a paragraph where they can put their comments. So once again, we're going to select that, and we're going to say your comments. Okay, so once we've done that, we save the form, and now what we want to do is we want to set up the email notifications for this form. So I'm going to select this, and I'm going to say, okay, that when somebody presses done, I want it to come back to my email address. I want it to come to tony@mogeneration.com. Now I don't want anything else. Send me emails about new entries, and hit save. Okay, so that's pretty much it. We can come back to the form, and we can, there's my simple feedback form here. We can view it if we like to see what it looks like. Okay, we can test it. So, Tony Redhead. I'm going to leave that open. This is cool. Okay, we hit submit. again, it's come back because we've put a mandatory field in there. It said that you have to fill this in. So my email address is tony@modegeneration.com, and we'll hit submit. There's my response. Now you see this is part of the free account you get. Once you pay, you lose all that. So let's come back to my email address, and we'll see if we've got that emails come through. And there it is, my simple feedback form. This is cool. Okay, so I've done the submission, the form's working fine. Obviously it's working from Wufoo, but now we need to get it onto the site. The other thing you can do is you can set up your own themes inside here. So for instance, if I come over to the themes area here, this is showing me the basic theme for the form that I've just made. So I could create a new theme, and we could say, okay, we want something loud and garish in the background, and in the header I want an orangey sort of color in there to complement it. The forms, I can change the typography, the title, the different types of styles. There's a number of different styles we can choose from, etc. So there's lots of sort of modifications you can do to it. So I don't want to do this now. I'm just going to come back out of here and come back into forms. Okay, so how do we get this content from Wufoo into Oomph? Okay, well, it's very easy. So what we need to do is we need to come over here to this little button called Code. And if I tap on Code, it's going to give me a number of options of what I can do with this piece of code. The one that we're interested in is HTML, CSS code down here. So I tap on that, and it's going to give me this download box. Now, a couple of things you must note in here. Field rules and date pickers will not work with this code, or multiple pages. So what that means is there's a thing called field rules that shows and hides different fields based upon some criteria. Date pickers are those little things, the little JavaScript widgets that pop up and allow you to pick a date from a range. You can still use date forms and stuff like that. It's just that that piece won't work. Now the thing is once you've downloaded it, you can just delete that out of the HTML and be done with it. Okay, so we'll download the files. Pretty simple little file down there. We'll open it up, we'll show it in the Finder. There it is, my simple feedback form. I'll extract that and save it onto my desktop. Okay, so we just hide that, and we'll hide Wufoo for a second, and we'll find out, there it is, my simple form here. So if I open this up now, you can see what's inside there. So we've got some CSS, we've got some little images, an index, some stuff that we don't learn about Wufoo that we don't really need, and a few scripts. So index is the one that we're really concerned with. So if I say open with Safari, okay, there's our form, similar to the way that we saw it inside their website. Okay. Now, if we want to incorporate that into a page and turn it into a widget, what we have to do now is come into here, and I'm just going to rename that as feedback form. Okay. Now, I've already done one in here before. If I open up, I'm just going to move this over to here. I open up here, you'll see down here I've got a folder in the top root called widgets. Okay, so if I take this form here, this folder here, and I'm just going to call it, to make it different, I'm going to call it, let me select it all, my feedback form, and pick that up there and drop it into there. And that's it. It's actually a widget. It's as simple as that. So all you have to do now is create your page, add a field, and then hyperlink to it. Okay, so let's do that. We'll come into webinar widgets, and we'll create a new section, and we'll call it 130 my cool form. Okay. So what we need to do now is, obviously in InDesign we need to create a page. So I'll create a new document in landscape here. Okay, just bring that down. Create an action create a field. Create a hyperlink. And just what did I call that? I called that my feedback form. So I'm just going to copy that. Back into InDesign. My feedback form 1, because it's a widget. Okay. And if we now export that file, as L1-1, save that. Fingers crossed that it's going to work. I'm just going to drag this onto a box. I've come to right at the end. There's my cool form in there, and Tony Redhead. Tony at mogeneration.com. This is a very easy way to create a form within Oomph. And there's our form widget all done. So I can use that widget on any section now because it's sitting up here in widgets. It's called My Feedback Form. All I have to do on any page where I'm at is actually just put in that hyperlink, and it will either take them to the form page, or we could sort of really go to the next stage and actually sort of reveal it in the page. So any questions so far? Is the sound okay? Everything's going along at a good speed today? Thanks, Alison. That's good. Excellent. I'm glad it's working. Okay, so yeah, they're nice little form. You know, it's a bit boring just sort of sitting out there on the page. But for me, one of the really cool things is now that it's a widget, you can animate it or stick it into an action hotspot and really integrate it into your page. I'm going to show you an example where I've integrated the form into a page using action hotspots. Okay, so here's my page, and I want to get some feedback either on the image or on the section or whatever. But I want it to be sort of cool and a bit interactive. So what I've done is I've created a button down here that says feedback form, and if I tap it, it's going to load that form into the page. But what I've done is I've knocked out all of the background elements. There was a question from Nigel, can readers add pictures to the form on the iPad? Yes, I think there is something inside Wufoo where you can do that. I can take a look and get back to you later on that, but I think they do have an uploader. I would have to check though. Okay, so the really cool thing is what I've done is I've actually created the same sort of form, but I've just gone into Wufoo in the themes and dropped out all the background and changed the color of the text. So you get this really nice little integration, and you see what I've done down here. I've swapped the button over, so now it says hide feedback. So basically what I'm using here is an action hotspot. So I can come into here once again, and I'm going to use Nigel's name this time. Sick of mine, but I'm going to use my address, Tony at mogeneration.com. cool integration of Wufoo. And that's probably not how you spell it, as integration. Okay, now when I submit it, you're going to see a couple of things. So first of all, if I come out of here, I'm going to hit submit. What it's doing now, it's actually coming back and saying, thanks, Nigel. So I'm using one of the inbuilt functions inside Wufoo where it'll actually detect the name of the person who's doing that, and so you can respond on a personal basis. So once again, if I come back into my email, there we are, there's Nigel's. I've already received the email back. Okay, so how do we create and integrate something like this? I'm just going to quickly show you in InDesign the pages that I've used in this little thing called integrated form. Okay. So on my page, obviously, I've got a background image. I've got a field here, and if you look down into the hyperlinks, I just open this up. This is an object calling content in a folder called feedback form. Down here is another object called form button. So once again, this is calling content that's in a folder called form button. That's all I've got on that page is 2 objects. The next thing I've got are my 2 states of my button. Okay, I've got the show button and then the hide button. Okay. On top of these is an action hotspot. Action, feedback form, page equals 2, transition equals dissolve, form button, page equals 2, transition equals dissolve. So when I tap on this feedback form, the first thing it's going to do, it's going to find the content that's inside the folder called feedback form, the object folder, and it's going to tell it to move to page 2. Then it's going to tell the button to move to page 2. So I press that, the first object changes, and this changes to hide form. So in hide form now, my action becomes change the feedback form back to page 1 and change the form button content back to page 1 too. So let's go and have a look at what's in that form button. It's just a blank page because when we first come to that page, we actually don't want to see anything there. We want it to be transparent. So I've got 2 pages in this s1-1.pdf. The first one's blank, therefore it becomes transparent. The second one has a field that links through to the feedback form. And you can see here, feedback form, no background number 1. So that's a widget that I've made by simply copying the code down from Wufoo. Okay. So if we hide this for a sec, and I'll come back and we'll look at the actual folder itself. And for those of you interested, that's the ferry from Port Jervis across to Kangaroo Island. Okay, so in here I've simply got 2 files, a b1-1.png, which is the background image, and then a b1-2. If I open that up and we look at the links, there's our 2 links. So there's our first object link that's linking to feedback form, the folder feedback form, and here's the second one that's leading to our other object folder, form button. Okay. So where are those folders with that content? Well, those folders are sitting down in shared, and they're sitting down in shared objects. Okay, there's the form button. There's my 2 pages of the form button, show and hide. And here's the 2 pages of my feedback form. Now these will both look blank, but the second page actually has the link on it that loads the form widget. Okay, so we're using lots of things. We're using shared so that we can use this feedback form in a number of different places. We can actually, inside Wufoo, do some clever things where we sort of try and automate the content that appears. Okay, so we'll just close out of that. So when they finish, they come back. There it is again. So any questions about Wufoo? Actually, what I'll do is I'm going to quickly just show you here in Wufoo the theme that I used to create that. Okay, so here's the form. In fact, actually, the form that I used was I think it was this one here. Yep. So the theme that I did was user group no background. So here's one user group, and this is I just added the logo in. But for the user group no background, you see what I've done is I've come into backgrounds here, wallpaper, and I've selected none. So header, none. Form, none. Field, I still need a color in the field. Highlight the same, instructions the same. And for the typography, I've changed it all to white. So this is how I build my theme, where it drops the background out. So once that code is put inside the widget, then bang, it just appears integrated with your background. I hear Alison's typing a question. Oh, that was your question. I answered it for you. Yeah, I think, like, you know, basically I would just say to you, like, jump onto the Wufoo site, register for free, try some stuff, you know, and if you come up with anything really cool, you know, please let me know, because it's really good to see what you guys are working on too. So if there are no more questions on this, I think we'll move on to the next section, which is Share Widgets. And Share Widgets are pretty cool too. Raymond, does it have to particularly go through Wufoo? That is a good question. There may be other places out there that do that. Or you could actually, you know, if you had the whole sort of thing built yourself. It's just that the nice thing about Wufoo is it's a free service, and when you go back in, you can do some quite remarkable things, and they've actually sort of built amazing stuff into it. There's one example I saw where you could put up images and people can, you know, pick the image that they like. There's a whole sort of reporting back end on it. I really haven't had a chance to go into it that far, but something here you can add reports and what have you, and themes and analytics. Rules. You can do payments through it. Apparently they do quite a few payments and stuff like that. So it'd be great if you guys could go and have a look and let me know. Probably the best thing is, like, if you've got some good examples, is to do it through the LinkedIn user group. Would be fantastic. Okay. Oh, look, Val's jumped in. Any website that can output the HTML or the forms or other features can be added as HTML widget in Oomph. So there you go. That's fantastic. So Wufoo's the one that I've been playing with, but yeah, if you find any others, let me know. I'd be really interested to see what you've come up with. Okay, so we're going to look now at Share Widgets. Okay, so trying to find a sort of definition of what a share widget is was sort of interesting, but basically what they do is they allow you to customize the results generated by a user who invokes sharing of your content to various social networks from within your app. So, you know, so somebody wants to share a page of your app with somebody else. Okay, so you can use the standard built-ins, or you can actually create more unique ones of your own. So think of them as an extension to the share functions that are already built into an Oomph app. It's just that they're much more flexible and allow you a greater range of customization. Now, when we get to the final screen, I've got some links back to the information about it. But I'd highly recommend you you go into Oomph support, into the documentation side. There's a whole section there that the dev guys have put up on Share Widgets, the hotspot parameters, the things you can change, how you can create valid inline share hotspots, parameter file names, template variables, screenshots, all sorts of things. It's quite fascinating. What I'm going to give you today is a bit of an overview of how you'd use them, and we can have a look at quickly building one. But it's really, once again, jump into the documentation and have a play with it. Okay, so inside our inside Oomph, obviously we have our built-in shares. Okay, if you tap somewhere and you bring up the UI, your email, Twitter, and feed and Facebook interface appears. These are sort of basic, but personally I want more control over what people share, and this is where Share Widgets come in. What I want to do is to control what content's delivered when the social media sharing is used. So let's say, we just do, we use the basics. So we'll do a basic email here. Now, this is probably not going to work because email sharing from iOS is not a good thing. So let me just quickly come into Reflection here and see if I can do it in Reflection. If none of you, if you haven't used Reflection before, Reflection is a very cool little app that you can download it from the App Store. It's not that much, but basically what it does, it allows you to mirror your iPad across to devices or TVs or what have you, and do some neat stuff and record from it, what have you. So I'm actually working on the iPad now, and I'm going to come into Shared Widgets. Okay, I'm going to come into here, and I'm going to send an email using the standard process. So here it is. Little form comes up. It does a very cool little screen grab of my page, and I shall send it to myself. Okay, I hit send, and it'll churgle away for a little while, and then it will send that out. But really, what I want it to look like, I want it to look like something more. In fact, I want it to look, let's have a look and see if that's actually arrived. Oh, I just heard it shoot out through into the internet. Oh, there we go. So this is what I receive after that share's been done. So anybody who's, if somebody's on your website and they're sharing it with a friend, this is what they're going to see. And obviously they can tap on here and they can view a larger version of that screen. And there's the content. But what I'd really like it to look like is something more like this. So down here I've got a little copyright notice on the image. Down there a little blurb about myself. So if somebody's going to use it to share information, then maybe I want to put a bit more information in there. So how do we achieve that, to go from that first one, which is the built-in one, to the other one? Well, we use shared widgets. So in the case of the email, we're going to create a share email widget in the 80 share bullet built-in section. Okay, so following along, I'm just going to hide the reflection. So if I come up to here, into the 80 share bulletin. So at the moment when I tap the email here, it brings up the standard one. So I'm going to create a share widget that is going to override the standard and put my own in. So the first thing I do is create a new folder called Share Email. Okay. Then you want to create your email, and you can create it either using a text file or for more rich results using an HTML file. Okay, so I've got one here that I'm going to open up. Just move that over here. Okay. Yes. Good idea, Val. Okay, so I'm just going to open this up with Dreamweaver. Okay, so what I've done here is I've created an HTML file that I'm going to use for my email. So it's pretty standard. It's it's got a little bit of CSS, which is you can get that natively inside Dreamweaver. And then what I've done is I've created some images, and those images are residing on my website. Okay, so the header is there. I've actually taken a screen grab here and added my my logo and my copyright notice on, and that's on there. And then I've got another little image here. So all of these are sitting on my server because they'll get loaded in the HTML email. Okay? So you simply save that as body.html. Now the other thing too that I'm using in here, I've got content templating. Okay. Right, thanks Tom. They allow you to insert shareholder. I was going to get to that, but Tom's preempted me on that now. Thanks, mate. Okay, so content templating. I'm just going to quickly come back to Google here and show you inside here. In documentation, once again, is a section built by the dev guys about content templating. So what this is really cool because it means you don't have to type in all this information all the time, okay? And if something changes, like if you move it to another section, it automatically changes. So these are variables that you can put into your content that allow this to happen. And I think inside my body.html, I think I've actually used some of those in here. Yeah, you can see down in here. Okay, so I'm saying in this section here, I thought you'd enjoy the screen grab from the iPad issue of app long name. So it's actually going to take the name of the app and replace it. And here I've got another one which is called download URL. So instead of having to put the shortened URL in all the time, Oomph will automatically do it when it publishes. So you can find out more information on that in the content templating section of the website, and there's links to that at the end of the webinar. So, if required, upload your images to an external server. Alternatively, you can have Oomph create the image by not having an image.png in the share email folder. So you can see at the moment that I've got just a tiny little blank white image.png. By putting this in here, this blocks Oomph from creating that standard one that it does taken from the screen. And I'll show you why it's really interesting for me in a second. I think this is something that may change. I was talking to the guys this morning about whether this is the right way it should work, but for the moment now, if you don't want Oomph to automatically generate an image, then you drop one of these things in here. There are also some other things that we can do called parameters. So in this case, you can use subject to drop sort of subjects in using parameter files, and that's explained in the documentation as well. So basically, once we've got those two files, I'm just going to copy these. And I come back into here and paste those two items into there. Okay, so remember this is before. So I tap on that and it brings up the old one. Okay. As soon as if I come back into here, I think, yep, it's in there now. Right, a little bug. But yeah, so what I'm going to do now is just drag that into here. So I'm loading the new version that's got that Share Widget in there now. So now what happens is when I tap on this button, even though it's the common interface button, what it's going to do, it's going to load my version of it. Okay, because it sees inside that folder, it sees the share email now, and it says, and Oomph says, okay, don't use the standard one that's built in, use whatever's inside the share email folder. So that's how easy it is to actually create your own unique content when people share things. It's just, it is so easy, it's so cool, and it's like just amazing. I love it. So remember, you can do parameter files. The only other thing to remember is like body.html is only for email. We use body.txt for Facebook and Twitter. Okay, so let's set up some share widgets for Facebook and Twitter into the same page. So at the moment, if we come in and we look at Twitter, so this is what Twitter is going to look like. And we open Facebook, and this is what Facebook looks like. Okay, so people can come in here and you can type more bits and pieces, but we want to sort of make it a bit more interesting. So I'm going to come back up to my webinar files again here. Okay, and notice I've got two more already prepared, Facebook and Twitter. So now these are a little bit different. So in the email one, I had body HTML image.png subject text. Here I've just got body text and image and body text and image. So let's look at the Facebook one. So here's Facebook. So once again, I'm using these variables: app long name, download URL. Okay, it's not HTML. It's just plain text. And here's the image that I'm going to use with it, similar to the one that I used in the HTML file. Now for Twitter, here's the same thing. Now once again, you obviously with Twitter, you've got to remember about the size of it. Oomph allows, I think, is it about 20 characters at the end, so about 120 is about the maximum characters. So once again, I'm just using the download URL in here. So all I have to do with these two files now is select those two folders, copy them, come back to my AT shared built-in, paste those two items in, and just change them from Facebook to Share Facebook. And go away. I'll do that. Oh, that's reflection. Hold on. Where reflection came from. And share Twitter. Okay, share email, share Facebook, share Twitter. Once again, come back out. We'll just drag that onto here. Just going to install it. Okay, so obviously we've got our email that looks really cool. So we'll send that to, oh, no, we're in the simulator, so we can't send an email. That's okay, but Twitter we can. So here's my Twitter. I thought you'd enjoy this panorama screenshot. Download Red 360. I'm going to send that. That's going to go off and tweet. Now I'm going to come into the Facebook version. So here's my Facebook version. There's like a little overlap there. I'm not quite sure why, but we'll send that to Facebook. So that's gone off to Facebook too in a second. So as simple as that, by simply dropping those three shared widget folders in there, what I've done is I've actually given alternatives or created alternatives to the standard ones generated by the interface. So we can quickly go and have a look here and see what's happened in terms of those things. So we can have a look at Twitter. Okay, so there's the entry that's come in there. It's got the URL back to the app. Okay, In this case it's Oomph Viewer, but if I had dropped that shared widget into my Red 360, it would have automatically put the Red 360 links in, which is very, very cool. And if I tap on here, then it will take me through to the image. Okay, so I can just close that up. And we'll go and have a look at Facebook. Oh, let me just come back to Red Square. Okay, and there's our post that we've done from that section. And once again, I can tap on that, and there's all the information there. So I don't really want that one up there because it's only a test, so I'm just going to delete that off there. Okay, so really cool. You can create your own content. You can, replace those things. But as Tom said earlier, one of the very cool things is that you can insert hotspots directly into your pages. And for me, that is a big thing. Because I use a lot of HTML pages with panoramas on them. So here's an HTML with a panorama, and there is nowhere to tap to bring up the user interface. Hang on a second. So there's no way here, if I want somebody to share that, there's no way without shared widgets that I can actually have that happen. But what is very cool is that if I come back into here, I have to come back into this interface to move around. You see what I've got in here now. I've got my panorama that's moving around, but I've also got a hotspot now that when I tap on it will actually launch the share widget and allow me to share from this file without having to go to the interface. So this is really cool if you're building multimedia sales decks or something like that, where you purposely build the app without an interface, where you don't want the interface, where you just want people to tap around inside it using your own buttons. So one of the problems that that happens to me too. So if I just delete this draft for a sec, I'm just going to rotate this around. So now in this situation, because I only have a panorama in the top section and I can tap down in the bottom section, okay, one of the things that will happen now, if I decide to send this to Facebook, you see what happens down here? Actually, I'll do an email. It'll probably make it easier to see. Okay. Because of the nature of HTML, it's hard to actually do a screen grab of the whole thing because it's, for some reason, it's difficult. I'm sure Tom can explain, or Val can explain why. So for a long time, it's been really impossible for people in my app, where I use a lot of HTML overlays, to actually, send something out that looks decent, that looks like it's supposed to look through social sharing. So that's what really appeals to me now about these things, is that what I can do now is come into here. Okay, in this case here it's an email, but if I just tap onto here and come back into here, okay, so now I've got a Facebook button. I want to share this on Facebook. Opens it up. I've created my own little image that's going to go here. I can send this to Facebook. So people can now use social sharing to share my panorama images, which for me is really cool, and I'm sure for you guys too, there's going to be lots and lots of occasions where it's going to be really good. Content localization, yeah, I didn't even go there yet, so that'll probably be the next one. So let's just take a quick look at how that looks when that ended up in Facebook. Okay, and there's that post that I've done then. I can actually highlight it and make it sort of larger what have you. So that's fantastic for me, and I'm sure, like, you know, if I find a use for it, you know, there'll be 1,000 other uses for it as well. I'm just going to delete that photograph again. So just a quick look at how we create these files, and then I think we're probably just about done. I don't think we're going to get time to look at all the updates, but I shall just give you, I shall tell you about them quickly. So shared widgets. So here's my page. So all I really do is I create an icon. Obviously, when I go to publish it, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn the background off. It's just a positional. So I've got my icon down here from Illustrator, and I've got a hotspot that points to share email 1. So this is the trick to actually using hotspots. If we want to do a shared widget that overrides the built-in buttons, we call the folder share email. When we're using a hotspot, then we call it share email 1, share Twitter 1, or share Facebook 1. So that's all that is this little hotspot here. I just export that. So I end up with a situation here where my share email. So in here I've got my panorama files, my HTML, I've got other bits and pieces and layers, and here I've got, I think, L1-4. You can see there's the overlay, and if I look at the tools and the link, there's the action, the hotspot on there. There's the properties where it looks for share email 1. Okay, and inside the folder here, I have share email 1, which is just a copy of those files that I showed you before with the body.html, the image.png. And it's as simple as that. I just drop that in there and put my little icons on there. So there's my Facebook one, L1-4. There it is. And now I've got action hotspots for social sharing throughout my pages. Okay, so looking at the time, I think we're pretty close to getting there. One of the interesting things, this may be new, but there's been a shared Twitter widget that's been around for a long time. It's been available since Oomph 10, and you can still use this one. You don't have to put any parameters in it. You can just use it as a normal widget. If you go to the documentation website, it will give you information about it. But for what we'd recommend for onwards forward compatibility and increased flexibility, we'd recommend that you adopt the new parameters. Okay, so for instance, like if you're putting this, if you're putting it in place, you can use a hyperlink, something like this. Let me show you. I think I've got it here. And if we just come back to Share Widgets. Oh no, it's sorry, it's share Twitter. So you can start adding all these different parameters in there now. So you could do a parameter like share Twitter URL equals download URL, and it will automatically put the download URLs in as well. Yeah, good point from Val. Your application needs to be set up with the Twitter and Facebook and stuff like that. So this brings us to the end of another webinar. Once again, I hope you've learned a little bit more about how to maximize your potential on this incredible platform Oomph has given us to build on. Once again, in a few days, I'll be posting the files, scripts, and recording from today's webinar in our forums, and we'll post out an update as soon as they're available. If you have a chance, if you'd like to fill in our little form, here's some of the links in helpful links that I was talking about. You can go to the Share Widgets and Wufoo, what have you. and thank you very much for attending.